1980, the Zimbabwean dollar was established to replace the Rhodesian dollar and to signify the nation's independence from the United Kingdom. Its face value was redefined 3 times until its eventual collapse in 2009 due to hyperinflation.
Now, why is this important? We need to address that issue because you need to get it in your spirit. God's restored his people to bear fruit in every good work and increase in the knowledge of God. Colossians 1 verses 9 through 12. We are coming through this time, which isn't into a new time, God's time, his it, and we are his land. Our hearts feel, and we are to bear not just good fruit, but great fruit. These redemption centers are where we're going to present ourselves, by ourselves, and for ourselves to redeem or exchange our currencies and or our Zimbabwe. And there are rates that are off the chart, absolutely off the chart. Welcome back, XRP Collective. Everybody on Before It's News, Trump News Channel, Rumble, Twitter, anybody out there with regards to the digital asset space, this is the time when you need to tune in, pay attention, and understand exactly what is happening right now. Everything out there is a show. It's theater. And it's all going on because God has a master plan. And that plan was created before time began, before we became flesh and blood. And I'm speaking to the 1,000,000%. Get ready for 3 different payout types. There's a lot of disinformation out there with regards to what's taking place, but there's 3 primary programs that were specifically set up to return everything that has been stolen since time of creation, going all the way back to Adam and Eve. And the Lord revealed that to me as soon as I came onto Twitter in April 3rd of 2021. And that's why I'm here. I'm not here to gain notoriety. I'm not here to create fame or glory for myself. I'm here to provide you with the information you need to know exactly what's going on. So you're not spending your time searching through or listening to the talking heads who are talking about everything from what the cabal is going to do to us and all the disaster and the FUD and the fear porn that's out there. Turn it off. Just turn it off. You don't need it. The Lord made it very clear that we were to REST. And why would he say that? Why would he say to rest? Because we have a tendency to continue to look for information that will agree with the narrative that we have in our mind. And I watch it every single day on Twitter. I watch it on YouTube. I watch it on Rumble. I've seen it on Telegram. I'm not there, by the way. I'm on Rumble for videos and I'm on Twitter to post. That's it. You won't find me anyplace else. But why is all this so important? Because if you're not prepared, and I am so serious about it, I've got over 37.5 years of tax and financial experience, having worked with the largest CPA firms out there in the country, having managed and assisted ultra high net worth individuals on how to structure their taxes and their businesses. I speak from a place of authority. And from that business sense, I speak under the authority of Father. And that's the reason why I'm here. The only reason. He brought me here to be able to provide you with information so that you would not be led astray and you would not be taken advantage of. And there's too many people out there giving bad information. And for some reason, we can't seem to come together in one accord. I don't understand it. If we're here for humanity, and that's why I'm here, then it should be very easy for us to come together to share information so that way we're putting out a consistent and correct dialogue for all of you out there. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. I hope you find it very, very informative, and that at the end of the day, when you walk into the Redemption Center, you'll be at ease knowing you have the greatest knowledge available as to what's taking place. So buckle up. Get out your favorite pad, get your pencil or your pen, get your favorite beverage, and get ready because you're going to find out everything that you needed to know about the 3 different payout types that are coming your way in God's plan. Stand by. 3 massive payouts are headed your way, and now you're going to get to know all about them. Number 1 is a program that was established called Reclamation. The second is called Restitution. And lastly, there's one called Redemption. Kennedy, back in the 60s, he knew that there was problems with our financial structure. He knew that it was being controlled by the deep state, cabal, and Khazarian mafia. He set out to right that situation. In 8 days before his death, he inked a deal to end the Federal Reserve. He signed that deal on November 14, 1963, and that agreement was with President Sukarno to provide funds to allow the United States Treasury to print its own currency, thus subverting the right to print the currency held by the Federal Reserve, which was established on December 23, 1930. And this is the agreement. You can see their endorsements and their stamps. You can see the date right here, November 14. Now, in that agreement, Kennedy had worked out that 59,000 tons of gold would underpin our U.S. domestic currency that would be backed by gold. And Kennedy set out to this with the understanding that the Federal Reserve must be a Lincoln on April 14, 1865, and Kennedy on November 22, 1963. They knew something had changed. Now, you'll recall, if you haven't seen this video presentation I've done about my secret private meeting in 1994 with Dan Rostenkowski, who was the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, you want to take a look at it. This is the man who was behind the scenes for an Nassara. This is the man who had a decorated career of over 36 years working with Kennedy, changing the tax law, reducing the tax rate, right up until the very last day that he was in office. He's one of the unsung heroes, everyone. And that video that I did, you can go look it up on my Rumble page. I go through in detail exactly what happened during that meeting, what he told us. And that information 30 years ago is exactly what's happening now. And this is one of those things that if you weren't there, you didn't understand. It didn't make sense. So let's take a look at exactly what's taking place now. Here's the first pay tag. What is reclamation? It's the act of returning something to a former, better state. Now in land, it involves raising a strip mall or planting crops. It's a noun, or in the noun form of the verb, it means to reclaim. Most people involved in reclamation want to reclaim something out of a sense of moral or environmental duty. Now let's transfer this over to our monetary system. This is NASARA, the National Economic Stabilization and Reformation Act. And I'm going to say that again. The Economic Stabilization and Reformation Act. The deep state has put information out there that has changed the word to make it look like you understand which program we're talking about. They changed the S between stabilization and security, and they changed the R from reformation to restoration. So the only official plan that we're talking about right here, National Economic Stabilization and Reformation. Probably should have put this, but this is the domestic payout portion for the United States. It's already mirrored onto the quantum financial system into your account, and that's what you're going to claim or reclaim at the Redemption Center. Now it's intended to restore what the evil cabal, deep state, Khazarian mafia stole. Everything that they've taken since time began, all the way down through your lineage. What could we potentially see? Group 1, 61 and Group 2, 45 to 60, and Group 3, 24 to 40. So the question always comes up, what's the minimum age to participate in NASARA? 24. We don't know the date that is being established, but there will be a date, and it could be the date the EBS goes off. It could be the date that the email goes out. We don't know yet, but there will be a day that constitutes you have to be 24 by the state. Now, back in that Dan Rostenkowski meeting in 1994, he spoke of $25 million per person, age adjusted. I bring that up because I want you to understand that these values, you can see Group 61 is up to $61 million, and you can see my asterisk. The values were calculated based upon the 1994 meeting with Dan Rostenkowski. Group 2 up to $38 million, and Group 3 up to $23 million. These are my calculations based upon specific information that I had, confirming what the values were approved 2016, and carrying all those values forward using a growth rate from 1994 to 2023, which consisted of pot. And that is a story in itself. So that's the first component, reclamation. That brings us into the second type, payout. What is restitution and reparation? I've seen where they're kind of playing around with this last wording. Sometimes they refer it to as recreational, but let's just stick with the hardcore truth, okay? What is restitution? It's the act of giving back something that has been stolen or lost. In law, it's the act of compensating for loss or injury by reverting as far as possible to the position before the injury occurred. Meaning, they look all the way back to when everything was just fine, and then they assess the damage. And that's just not the monetary damage. It can be the mental trauma. It can be anything related to that, what a person went through because they lost something. What's reparation? It's the making of amends for a wrong one is done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. Since the Federal Reserve was created December 23rd, 1913, for 108 plus years, their mandate was to steal, kill, and destroy, along with the IRS and the SEC. That was their modus operandi. What does it include? This would account for all of the unconstitutional acts committed upon humanity. The income tax, which we know were involuntary. They forced us to pay income tax. We did not have a choice because the strong arm of the IRS, not part of our Constitution, not part of our government system, but a third-party entity incorporated in Puerto Rico, operating under the Crown, was there to take our money. They did it through income taxes, interest, mortgages, credit card, loans, property tax, like converting us to chattel, which meant that we became property. And through that designation, various types of bonds were taken out. Bonds traded on Wall Street. Our birth certificate came a bond. Our Social Security card came a bond. We got married. Our wedding certificate came a bond. We were divorced, a bond. College, advanced degrees, professional designations, each one of those came a bond with a pre-described value that was traded on Wall Street. Even the life insurance, you heard me talk about. Who's eligible? 3 primary groups. Again, 60 plus, 60 and over. Group 2, 50 to 59. And Group 3, 30 to 49. I'm going to say that 30 loosely because previously it had been established it's something in the 28-year range. Now, everything here is subject to change. Everything's very liquid. The AI computer system spent years going through all the records, find out how much each person paid in income taxes. If you filed a joint return with a spouse and you're no longer with that spouse, 50% of the taxes paid will be refunded to that spouse, whether they were a wage earner or not. Group 1, 60 and over, they're going to receive payment over 3 months for everything I described above. Group 2, it'll be paid over 12 months. And there will be an interest factor, a nominal interest factor, because we're basically receiving it not in lump sum like we will in the SAR. And for Group 3, over 15. But this in itself, I mean, I thought about it because I'm a tax guy, right? If you just figured what you paid in income, and they're saying that this could go back 40 years. So that would mean back to the 80s, starting in 1983. That's a lot of money. And then figure out what you paid in interest, student loan, card, mortgage. And as we all know, a mortgage is front-ended. So for the first 5 years on a mortgage, you're pretty much paying 95% or more solid interest. So if you had a $3,000 a month mortgage payment, that's roughly $36,000 a year, and multiply that times 10 years. You can see these numbers are adding up fast. Put in their car loan, property tax, they're ridiculous. And then some portion of the bond bonds coming out. There have been estimates, and I've heard from other people who have figured out how to go and look up their bond certificates. Birth certificate bond, $8 billion in value. Social Security bond, in excess of $8 billion. Now, will we receive all of that? No, but a portion of it. And what if it's just 10%, 5%? A lot of money. So this is exciting for these different types of payments that are coming to make us whole. Now, if you're younger, you just haven't had enough time to pay into the system. But it doesn't mean you're not getting back what it was. So don't be discouraged by the amount. Be overjoyed. This has only happened because God is in control. And it was time to take out this evil. And it's all gone. It's not going into the system. He made that very, very clear. What is redemption? And I've broken it down into two types, type 1 and type 2. Let's go over type 1. That's going to cover the currency, foreign currency, and the Zim bond. And this is a covenantal legal term strongly associated with ransom, atonement, substitution, and deliverance, thus salvation. And what, apropos, theologically, redemption refers to ultimately to the saving work of Christ, who came to accomplish our redemption by giving his life in substitution for our own as the ransom. It was his blood that paid for our salvation. Now, it's easy to think of redemption as the ultimate end, but restoration means that there is more to redemption than the promise of eternal life. What does that mean? It means that the lives that are redeemed are restored to good purpose on earth. And as it says in Colossians 1, verse 9 through 12, God restored people to bear fruit in every good work and increase in the knowledge. And this is what we're going to be doing with these humanitarian projects as we move forward. That's the fruit. Now, this is identified as the redemption center. This is where the redemption process takes place. And it's where we're going to present ourselves, by ourselves, and for ourselves to redeem or exchange our currencies and or Zim. This was a huge revelation for Charlie Ward when I did that interview with him in February 23. These currencies and these Zim bonds, they come with specific higher rates and predetermined allocation percentages of what will be deemed for personal use and the remainder for humanitarian project. Now, I'm not going to go into much depth on that. Just be aware of it. It's covered in my video about the 9 stations for the Redemption Center. I'm in the process of putting together an updated presentation on that, so it's coming in the next couple days. But just know that the estimated allocation percentages are as low as 5% to as high as 20% personal. And again, everything is subject to change. It's all fluid. I've talked about the fact that the dinar was estimated to be in the $14 to $17 range. Recently, it's come out that we're up into the high $13 range already, and that the Zim bonds are anticipated to be at par with the US dollar. Wonderful. And that's all I can say on that. So we've got the primary foreign currency. We have the Iraqi dinar. We have the Venezuelan bolivar. We have the Vietnamese dong. And then lastly, we have the Zimbabwe Zim bond. And you saw my presentation where I talked about the Zim bond. The Zim bond is a unexpirable bond, meaning it can't be written off. The bearer of the bond has to be repaid. The Asian elders came in and bought all of the assets from Zimbabwe above the ground. And then they did something extraordinary that no one else discovered. No one else has ever reported on. I've never seen it in an intel report. And the only one that spent the time to dig down on it, find this information, and it identified that the Asian elders made an agreement with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe to buy back all of the bonds. I'm going to say that again. The Asian elders made an agreement with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe to buy back all of the Zim bonds. And that's all I can say about that. So here's my presentation for what I'm calling Redemption Type 2. You've heard me talk about the XRP buyback. You've heard me talk about the fact there were substantial hurdles that were identified in the evaluation committee with Jimmy Valley, hat off to Jimmy Valley, that when the Lord began to reveal what was happening in the quantum realm with regards to our new economic system, it became more than easy to identify the fact that trying to go and hire hundreds of attorneys, trying to write agreements and contracts in the new quantum language would be next to impossible in order to help facilitate the buyback of XRP, which was originally scheduled to be in December 2021 and was deferred, or as Jerome Powell would say, the overnight option was selected. It was moved into the second position. Nassar moved into the first position, covered that in other videos, but that the most sensible and best practices approach would call for that all be handled through the redemption center. Why? All the digital assets, XRP, etc., it's being mirrored onto our quantum access account on the QFS, XRPL, in real time. So they know exactly what we have. So it eliminates any issue of having to move it to a custodian to hold it, all the requirements of getting someone to provide the information in order to move it, versus, hey, I'm at the redemption center, I'm taking care of all this other reclamation and restitution, reparation. Why don't I just have an option to accept the buyback or not? And I'm shown the value, which I've already determined to be $1 million based upon the global liquidity requirement to facilitate liquidity for this new quantum system at $100 quadrillion. Why would we go through something more difficult when God had already created this before time began? And it's simply a process of showing up and reclaiming what's ours. And that's really what's taking place with the buyback. We weren't supposed to have access to the XRP. We don't get to hold the XRP. And there's a lot of people out there that want to think that we're going to bring in the old system, which involves staking and using its value to trade with and everything else. Well, we can just put that aside, because that isn't part of what the purpose for XRP is. It wasn't designed to be a trader's one. It's a master key to the QFS XRPL, which operates in the fifth dimension, which is a megalithic financial structure that has no peer. It can't be hacked. It operates off of the Starlink at speed of light. It's not limited to the number of transactions that can occur at any point in time, like our crappy internet system here, the viruses and everything else. That's why that's going to shut down, and we're going on to quantum. We're going to get quantum computers. We're going to have quantum phones. So Occam's razor, which is the theory that says says the simplest and best approach is more often than not the correct path to follow. So I present this to you to consider it. We'll have to see. I'm a strong believer in simplicity. I've done all the research. My white paper shows I don't hide any. I put it all out there. Nothing is opinion. It's all based upon relevant, factual information that has been vetted and proven. So this is my type 2. This way we can get it done. This way we don't have animosity. This way we don't have any resentment. And then a person can decide for themselves whether they want to receive a buyback on their XRP. Because all of the tokens have to go back under the fiduciary control, which will be XRP and Ripple. So we're not going to be able to do anything. We're not going to have CBDCs. They're not necessary. We don't need to take an element from the old system and try to fit it into the new system. Because CBDCs are simply a cabal idea on how to keep the banks in control, right? No, that's not going to happen. That's why Congress has already voted against the Federal Reserve or other from ever being able to create a CBDC for the U.S. So again, what you're seeing out there is just a lot of theater, giving the impression to the old guard that they're still in control. And this is just so they can be rounded up. But, God gave the value for each XRP token at $1 million. And it was proven through the valuation. And that's what was included in the white paper that was released by Val Capital back in June of this year. And then I released my own follow-up white paper. But I was trickling this information out way before. But that's why the Lord brought me, so that you would have the information you needed to make an informed decision. So that is it, everyone. Those are the three types of payout: the reclamation, the restitution and reparation, and then lastly, the redemption portion. So with that, I thank you, I bless you, and I look forward to speaking with you again. God bless.